Welcome to video 5 in our mini-series on getting started with Traktor. And this video tells smart DJs what they need to know about beat mixing and sync. Over to you, Steve.
Hey, welcome back. In this video we're going to be explaining Traktor's sync function, how it works, how to use it, and how it can help you to learn to mix smoothly really quickly. So most people, when you're starting to learn to DJ, you want to learn to beat mix, which is smoothly mixing 2 or more tracks together with the beats perfectly lined up so it sounds smooth and keeps the party rolling nicely. But before you mix tracks together in Traktor, you need to understand sync. Now, when mixing from one track to another, sync is Traktor's automatic function to match the BPM or the tempo of the next tune to the BPM of the current one without you having to do it manually. Now, we do encourage you to learn manual beat matching at a later date. It is a lot of fun, but you don't need to do it now to get started. Now, in order to do this process, Traktor has to know the BPM of each track, which is the beats per minute, and also needs to know the position of those beats so that it can line them up with the other tracks. And it achieves these two things by creating a beat grid. Now, a beat grid is created automatically during the track analyzing process that we showed you in our video about importing your tracks into Traktor. So let's analyze another track for the first time so we can see what Traktor does. I'm going to go down here, grab a track from my iTunes library. Got some new tunes in here. You can see they're grayed out, so they haven't been imported into the collection yet. I'm going to pick one up, drop it onto the deck and watch what happens. So, in addition to importing the artwork and analysing the musical key of the tracks, Traktor has also done the following. It's created a waveform that you can see here, giving you a visual representation of the music to help you see the position you're at within the track and where there may be changes like breakdowns and energy level changes, etc. It's also decided on a BPM for the track overall. In this case it's 122 BPM pretty much. And it's also decided on the first beat to start the beat grid from. I'm just going to zoom in closer so you can see it. That triangular marker with the number 1 is a grid marker, and it's different to a hot cue, which, as you'll remember, is a flag shape. And from that grid marker, the last thing it's done is it's laid the beat grid across the whole of the track. And you can see the lines here. Each one of these denotes 1 beat of the beat grid. So now that Traktor has this grid, with sync switched on, it uses this to lock the beats or the grid of this track with any other track by changing the tempo to match so that the grids lay perfectly on top of each other, creating a smooth sounding mix. Let's see how it does this. I'm going to load up 2 tracks that have got different tempos. One on the right deck and one on the left. Now, these are the beat grids. They're both lined up at the first beat of the track, but they have different tempos, as you can see here. This one is 123 BPM and this one is 125. So these will not mix nicely together. Let's have a listen. I'm going to start both the tracks at exactly the same time by hitting W and S on the keyboard, which are the play buttons for each deck. Wow, okay, so I'm sure you'll agree that sounded pretty horrible. Bit like someone falling down the stairs while carrying a drum kit. And that's because the BPMs are different, meaning that as soon as I hit play, the tracks set off at different tempos and the beats very quickly went out of line with each other. Okay, so here's how we switch on sync to fix this. First, in this example, I'm going to assume that the track on deck A was my first track playing, and that I want to sync and beat mix the track on deck B. So I'm going to press play on track A and get it running. And I want you to look at these 2 boxes here at the top of this deck, in fact of both decks, and you'll see that it says sync and master. And you'll notice that this deck has got the box master lit up and the other one doesn't. What this means is that if I sync the other deck, it will adjust the tempo to be the same as this one because this is the master tempo. So let's do that. Moving over to deck B, without playing it yet, I'm just going to engage sync, which you can do by either clicking sync on the deck or you can use the J key on your keyboard to sync the right hand deck. Let's do that. And now you'll notice that the tempo matches that of deck A. It has now synced the grids and therefore the tracks. So let's take the two tracks back to the start and we'll try that experiment again. Get them both at exactly the same point, right on their cue points at the beginning. And let's have a listen this time. Aha, that's more like it. So those tracks are pretty locked tight. So if I was mixing the beginning of this one into the end of this one, for example, I could do a nice smooth mix perfectly in time, and it would prevent people from tripping over on the dance floor like the one I did earlier. So with the tracks back at the beginning again, there's a couple more things that I want to show you about the master function. Just because you're in sync mode, it doesn't mean that you can't change the tempo of your tracks. You just have to remember that you can only change the tempo of the master track because the other one is synced to it. You can even change the tempo whilst you're mixing. The changes will be tracked by the other deck. So here I can show you. This is the master, both tracks are mixing. But if I change the tempo here, you'll see that it's also changing on the other deck because this one is the master. If I want to, I can swap the master focus over to the other one by clicking there. And now I can't change the tempo here anymore. It won't let me, but I can here. This is my new master. And also another thing to know is that once I've maybe finished doing my mix, so I've mixed over into this track, for example, and I stop this one, you'll notice that immediately this one became the master. Traktor will automatically swap the focus of the master tempo over to the new track so that when I put another track in the other deck, it will instantly sync it and keep everything in sync for my mixing. Okay, so that's it for this video. You now know what sync is and how it works, and you're probably really excited to start mixing your tunes now. So let's move straight on to show you exactly how in the next video. See you then.